welcome to another episode of Woman Witness Podcast, The Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Here on this platform, we bring to you voices of women who are out here making a positive difference in their lives, in the community, and just the world around them. Today, I have a very special story with a very special guest that's going to give us some insight in her world and the restoration that she is creating around her and the lives that she impacts. Before I introduce my guest to you, I want to read a little bit about her. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Leila Mizell, the proud owner of Phoenix Beauty. With over 25 years of experience, Leila is a seasoned professional in image consulting and the makeup artistry. She views her artistic talents as a way to uplift women's spirits and restore their sense of self. Leila's expertise spans across ministries such as mentorship in fashion, styling, and makeup artistry. She has previously written a beauty column called Spirit and Style and has organized various women's events and seminars. Rooted in her own personal journey of faith as a Christian for over 3 decades, Leila's business is a reflection of her commitment to Christ. Following a tumultuous past marked by abuse, Leila found her solace and healing through her faith. She now shares her testimony and empowerment skills to motivate women to embrace their inner strength and undergo personal transformations of their own. Without further ado, I am so excited to introduce to you my guest today, Leila Mizell. Leila, welcome to the well. Hey, honey.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. Glory to God, because He has done it all. He really has. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. When your profile came across my desk, I was like, I have to talk to her because she has a story to tell and she's willing to get out there and be a witness. And I'm so glad that you chose to do it here on the Woman Witness podcast. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I always say my makeup is makeup with a message. It comes with a story behind the brush.
Oh, that's good. I love it. Okay. Hold on before you start dropping bombs on us. I want you to introduce yourself. And could you share a little bit? Go ahead.
My name is Leila, and I am a Cajun girl in a Texas world. I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was actually born abroad, the daughter of a martial arts instructor in the Air Force. So, as a young child, we traveled around the world. I was actually born abroad, and then when he retired, my father was from Louisiana, and that's where I was raised from a very young girl. So, you can attribute my heavy twang to South Louisiana. but some good cooking. Okay, I can cook. Okay.
Yes, it is. I mean, crawfish, everything.
Oh, everything.
What's your favorite? You just got to tell me.
Etouffee, probably my etouffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I made all my friends. When I moved to Texas, almost 6 years ago, 6 years in the fall. And that's exactly how I made all my friends. I said, I can cook Cajun food. And so I had instant friends. When I moved to Texas, it was just that's another part of the story, but that's just another chapter of my mother was from Texas and really connecting with her legacy and my grandmother's legacy. And that's kind of a tremendous story. And God just furthering my story when I moved here 6 years ago. But my personal story all started when I was 22. And I found the Lord. I found Jesus at 22, or I guess I should say He found me, because I was nowhere where Jesus was, okay? Kind of like the woman at the well. They were at a place where they weren't supposed to mix.
Yep.
You know, and He is so willing to reach out to you wherever you are. His arm is not too short. And so wherever you are, whatever place you are in life, He is there ready to reach you. But at the age of 22, there's a long story before 22. But when He found me at 22, I was a hot mess express at having having come through what looked on the outside like a very average kind of middle class home, but really suffered a variety of abuses behind closed doors and even outside of the home in my teenage years and into my young adult years at 22. And at 22, I was doing what everybody else was doing at 22
Yeah,
out
of
there in the
course.
world. And
Yes.
the last thing I thought I was ever going to do was go. I hadn't been in church since I was a child, so it was just really kind of out of left field.
So you grew up
How the
in
Lord.
church, Leila?
No, I wouldn't say I grew up in church. We went to church at times, and both of my parents had a background and were both Baptist, kind of out of the Southern
Got it.
Bible Belt. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't say that we grew up in church. At times, we would go to church, and I'm fortunate that my mom did like bring us to Vacation Bible School and things
Yeah.
like that. So I had somewhat of a foundation
Right.
prior. Like I knew who Jesus was. I knew, I believe he was the Messiah, the Son of God. But I did not have a
You
personal.
didn't know.
I have a
Yeah.
personal relationship, and I had no personal encounter with him. And my mother invited me to a play. I got saved at a play, and I think this is very telling because since then the Lord has really used the arts as a avenue of ministry for me. I was saved through the arts. My mother had recently started going back to church, and she started praying for her children. I don't know why, but it's always a praying mama
It's always
somewhere.
a frame.
It's a praying grandma. It's a
Come
praying
on.
mama.
Okay, mothers, listen to this. We gotta stay prayed up for our family.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just behind a Mother's Day, and my mother is no longer with us. I lost her about 3 years ago, but this is only a few days after Mother's Day. If it wasn't for my mother, none of us would be here. I was the first one of the children that came to the Lord. There's many miracles, but my mother invited me to a play, and I reluctantly went. She used mom guilt and said, do it for your mother. I was working at a nightclub. Oh yeah,
Okay. Come on.
I was working at a nightclub. I was doing everything.
Yes.
And she said, do it for your mother. So I said, okay. In my mind, I was like, well, I'm just going to go for an hour. I'm just going to go to this play, and
Yeah.
I'll be home. And I had no idea what was about to grip me. And
Wow.
I walked into that church, and it was a large church. And the very first scene of this play, and it's a play, and this was back in the 90s, that has
Mhm.
went around the United States and the globe. It was called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that or not, but
Mhm.
a lot of churches hosted that
Live.
ministry. And
Right.
so, yeah, and in the play, it was just kind of segments it was different scenes of people's lives and where they were and where they came to the end of their life, like never expecting it. And, you know, they were at heaven's gates. But the thing that impacted me the most, the whole play was the very first scene, and it was the Via Dolorosa. And Jesus was walking with the cross, and he was stumbling. And it was the seeing the cross that crucified my heart. And there I was, you know, from my experiences in life being very tough on the outside, and then going under mom guilt to this play and not wanting my mom to
Wow.
see, you know what I mean, trying to be tough on
Yeah.
the outside. And
Yeah.
I was breaking on the inside. My heart, the more that I watched him stumble, the more that I watched the weight that he carried, the more that I watched his sacrifice and his love for me, the more the chains began to break off of my life, off of my heart in that moment. And I felt these tears like welling up in my, like, from down deep in my chest, and I was just fighting back tears the
Yeah.
whole entire time. And just to kind of make a long story short, that night they didn't really expect it, but they imagined like anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people came forward and gave their lives to Christ. And the play was on. It was a revival. It was a move of God.
Wow.
And The play was only scheduled to run for 3 nights, but because of the outpouring, they ran it for 18 nights and estimated around 18,000 people gave their life to the
Wow.
Lord
In this,
during that time.
wow.
Yeah, and I was one. I was one, and just a quick little interesting point. I got saved in a revival in a large church in a mass revival, and I did not know any other Christians. I didn't know, like, when I went forward. I actually went forward the next night. I went back. I was tough. I wasn't going to let you know
Yeah.
anybody break me down. And then I
Right.
went home. I went home. Oh yeah, except I kind of laugh because every time I think I'm tough against God, it's kind of like hilarious because He
Yeah.
always wins. He
Every
always wins every time, and I'm so thankful that He does.
time. Yeah. 100%.
And that night I went home and I couldn't shake it. And I called my mother that late at midnight. And a midnight call from your daughter, you think something is like awful.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
going on?
Right.
And I
Right.
told her I wanted to go back. And I said, Mom, I want to go back. I want to get saved. And she took me back the next night. And I gave my heart to the Lord that night. But what I think is so amazing about what happened in the days after that was that my follow up card, okay, now, mind you, they never imagined there would be this many people. And so
Yeah.
they wanted to follow up and connect and disciple all of these people that had given
Yeah.
their hearts to the Lord. And so I was one of 18,000. My point of sharing this is how important each individual, how each person is to God. So out of 18,000 people, there was one person who I had no idea that was on staff of this church that knew me from the 6th grade.
Wow.
Mind you, I was 22. Okay.
Wow.
Somehow, through just the divine purpose of God, my
Found
follow
your
up
name.
card came to her. And she called me 2 weeks later. It was taking them a while to get to everyone. And of course, I meant everything, but I just went back to my life as I knew it. I went,
You don't
I went
know.
back to the, I went back to the club. I went back to
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call 2 weeks later on a Wednesday night, a phone call, and from a person that I'm still friends with to this day. He's a wonderful pastor. She called me and said, "Hey, Leila, I don't know if you remember me, but we were classmates in the 6th grade." And she told me her name, and I started to think about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I remember you." I couldn't think of why in the world would she be calling me. Yeah. And she said, "I got your follow up card." And I said, "No way." And from that moment, she invited me, but she invited me and she invited me to church. And, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt very out of place, but I did. And she said, "I'll meet you in the parking lot." And because I was too afraid, I didn't even want to walk in. I just felt like I didn't belong there. You know what I mean? Like I just came from a different place. I'd been in a different. I felt like the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, that had been married 5 times, that had a story to tell, that had a dirt on her. And I was like, I don't belong here. I don't belong. I don't belong with these people that look like they've been saved their whole entire life. I just had a lot of preconceived ideas. But she
Yeah.
invited
Yeah.
me. This is the South. She invited me to the cookout. And so,
Oh,
so
okay now.
she invited me to the cookout. She met me in the parking lot. And so from then on, I've always offered to anybody who ever wanted to go to church with me that I would be your parking lot friend and I would meet you in the parking lot. Because sometimes, I mean, it's just hard to get from the car to the door. The
How many
devil will
times
be
did
in the parking lot telling you not to go inside, and how uncomfortable and how you
100%?
don't belong and how you don't fit and everything. But I guess to wrap it all up and say that's how it all began. That's how Jesus found me, and it was through a play, and it was at the age of 22, and then that's where it all began 30 years ago. And
Wow.
I could probably be on here forever and ever. Amen. You asked me if I wrote a book, and I
No,
was like, no, but I need to,
you
because
know you need to.
I need to
Listen,
put all this
you
stuff
just
somewhere. Yeah,
that
but
was a
that's how my story began. I guess my story at the point of
yeah.
salvation, anyway, began. Yeah,
No,
22 years
that's
ago.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that, Leila, because you humanized it for us all. You made us all understand that we do not have to have this perfect life. We don't have to wait till we have it all together to
And
go
you don't
in.
have to look the part
You don't
that you
have to look.
think you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I didn't look
Yeah.
I look like I just came out the club. Because I
Listen,
had.
listen.
Okay. And
And
for a while, I wasn't out the club. I was still, my life hadn't changed yet, but I was going to
yeah,
church and going to work. And I always hated this part in church. He would say, turn around to your neighbor and shake their hand and tell them your name, tell you
yeah,
where you live, tell them where you work. I was
yeah.
like, mm-mm.
Uh, I'm not even about to read my mail.
But it took, the
Yeah. It's a
transformation is a process. It takes time. But my
yeah.
salvation was real. My salvation was real. And I mean, I cannot tell it all the things, how the Lord even transitioned me out of that lifestyle, and how the confidence that he gave me, because of course I felt like I didn't have any. I didn't feel like
Yes.
I didn't belong. I had no identity. I will say this: the first kind of like prayer or prophecy that someone ever prayed over me, I thought was
Mhm.
so beautiful. And I was very young in the Lord, maybe six months or so, and this was um, and in like a prayer group, and they were praying over me and said, God says that you are a Proverbs 31 woman. I had no idea what that meant.
Come
I actually
on.
literally went and asked my friend, and she's like,
Oh,
oh, well, that's the model Christian, that's kind of the standard for like Christian women. And I was like, me?
me?
Because you see, I didn't look like the other people
No.
then, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't cleaned up like I look now. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I was like, why? But that's who God called me. That's who God said I was, because
Does he
I
see
was that woman. And the word says that his word does not return void, but it achieves the purpose for which it is sent. In the moment that his word about my identity and
it?
who God said I was released over my life, that word has been working for 30 years, and it has not returned void, and it is achieving the purpose for which it has been sent, because that is who God says that we are. That is the value and the worth that he places on us, even though our life and our story and maybe our appearance or the way our everything that we think is wrong about us, or the world says is wrong about us, our society, or our culture, or whatever it is, God says who we are, and he puts that word at work in our lives, and it does not return void. And I am the living, breathing testimony of that word.
I love that. When you said that, when the scene that got you is when Jesus was carrying the cross. And what it reminded me of when you said that, it reminded me of when we say yes to Christ and we start walking in our purpose, we are picking up, the Bible says we pick up our cross and walk with them. So I could even feel the weight of your, when you seen that, because now I'm pretty sure you have felt the weight of that, the change in your life from picking up your cross and, turning down some of those things that used to, give you peace and restoration. And now you're moving towards God's purpose that he has for you in your life. Can you talk to some of us about that, Leila? Because, we all want to walk on this journey of, with Christ, but we have to understand, and once we realize that that weight is not meant to break us, but to build us. Can you talk to us about that journey and how it looks?
I always say, whatever God reveals, he heals.
Mm,
So the purpose of God breaking us is to heal us. It's to restore us, because what happens through our traumas and our abuses in life, when we're without the Lord, we build our own layers of protection. We
yeah.
build our own walls. We build our own safety, because we were violated. We were traumatized. We were hurt. We were wounded in some sort of way. And we build a variety of mechanisms around us to keep ourselves safe. But what it also does is it keeps a lot of things out.
Out.
And it does, and it keeps a lot of relationships. It keeps your relationship with God out, and you really have to begin to let Him break down those walls. And it's the power of the cross. I mean, it starts, it ends, it is all because of
Yeah.
what He did for us on the cross. And when I saw Him carry the cross, it was this awakening because I had forgotten. Because really, up until that point, I had knowledge. I mean, knew the Bible stories and things, and I wouldn't even
Yeah.
say that I was an unbeliever. But
Yeah.
if you would have asked me, I would have agreed and believed. I
But,
wouldn't have debated you about who Jesus was or the Bible or anything.
right.
But it was just information at that point. And when
Mm,
I saw it, I think that's why I love the arts, because it's a picture that you can see. Is because when I saw it, it was this remembrance. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what it was real.
yeah.
This is what Jesus has done for me. And there's a power in it that's hard to explain,
Yeah.
and when I saw it, the power of it just began to penetrate the layers that I had built up in my own heart and in my own life. So it was that
Mm.
breaking, and then many breakings under,
Right.
it's kind of like resetting, is like resetting a bone. You know how they say, like,
Yeah.
if you have a broken bone and you just let it heal on its own, it will
Yeah.
heal but broken. And in
Mm,
order for that bone to heal properly, I got to go back in and sometimes re-break it and reset it and put it back in its proper place, and
that's
then let
true.
the true healing begin. And I can say that is what God did in increments over my life, was to go in and deal with a certain wound, a certain broken bone,
Yeah.
and break it, set it back in place, and bandage it up. He says He's close
Yeah.
to those that are brokenhearted, and that the ministry that will go forth. The breaking
Yeah.
part hurts a little bit, but the love, the ointment that He pours on after
Yeah.
that, it's the great exchange.
Absolutely.
The scripture teaches us about beauty for ashes, but you have to give your ashes in order to get the beauty. It's that place of surrender. And I think when we talk about surrender, I think a lot of times we think about it in a big general sense. But I
Right.
know that I've had to surrender one little thing and one little thing and one little thing and one little thing every step of the way, many, many times. It's a life of surrender. And sometimes it's surrender to
Yeah.
your pain and letting go. Sometimes it's surrendering to your way. Sometimes it's just a variety of things. And I've had God even bring me through difficult things where I was just very scared, and I thought even the Lord would let me down, and
Mm,
I would have to surrender a very painful place and be willing to go through it. But when you
mm,
go back through it and you see God's faithfulness, that
yeah.
it begins to heal all of that fear, all of that doubt, all of that insecurity. And then you build this confidence in your walk with God, that it's not just, or you've been told that He'll never leave you or never forsake you. That
No.
He will never leave you
Know it.
or never forsake you, because you have walked through the darkest of waters
Right.
together.
And it's so I love that point that you just made. It's so interesting because I love the fact that you said you will know. And the difference between
Mhm.
knowing and hoping is so big, right? We when
I
we go
always say, I know it in my shanana.
oh, huh? Okay.
I know it down in my shanana. And what that means is I don't just know
Huh?
it here, like in a
Yeah.
cerebral sense. I know it down in my gut. I know it
Yeah.
down in the person that I am. It is woven inside of me. Like, you
Yeah.
could, in certain places, I feel like you could cut me open and you could see God's word there, because that is what's at work in that certain area of my heart or certain area of my life. So when I say
Right.
I know something, I know it down in my
Yeah.
shanana.
Yes. I love that. I really do, Leela, because it makes a difference. It when we go
It
into
becomes a part of you. It
correct.
becomes a working part of you. I always say, I don't read the word. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just information, it becomes a working thing inside of you. The word is written on the tablets of your heart. You
Yeah.
know, it's on the inside of you. It never leaves you. That's why the kingdom of God is on the inside.
On the
Yeah,
inside.
it's on the inside of you. You're walking out the kingdom.
Love it. I will say for some of our listeners who are listening, and we see and we hear Leila and we hear her where she's at in her journey, and we all may be in different parts of our journey and different parts of our walk, which is why, especially when we're listening and at Leila and we're hearing her story, and when the difference between hope and knowing is like when you go into rooms differently. When you start that job differently. You go back to school because you know that God told you to do it. And when you know that God told you to do it, you know that He's going to see it through. Where we fail, I believe a lot of us sometimes we get halfway through, Leila, and we figure out we're like, oh no, God, maybe I heard wrong. Maybe it wasn't you. I hope you're going to come get me out of this. But when you walk through it. Leila, talk to some of us who hope that we hear it the right way. How do we go from that hope to knowing?
What comes to mind immediately is a quote that my best friend tells me. She said, Leila, there's a warrior inside of you that just won't die.
Ah, I love
And
it.
get you a good old best friend in the
Come on.
church. Because
Church best.
I'm telling you, because Moses had an Aaron. And you don't need a flock of people on the outside telling you about, what to do about every single thing. With women, we've had a lot of opinions a lot of times. But get you a good sister in the Lord that is solid and has walked through some junk. Okay, that has walked through some stuff, has seen the word and miracles come to pass through faith in their own life, because you will have moments. I cannot sit here for 1 second and just be like, I just walked through with just like perfect faith. No, I walk through a lot of times screaming and crying, but I always said, I always say this: it's okay to go in the corner and cry, just come out fighting. Okay, and it goes back to the power of the cross, because the power of the cross isn't just to crucify, it's to be risen. And there is resurrection power in the cross. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
why the tagline on my beauty brand is the power to rise and transform. Because when you have encountered Jesus for real and the power of the cross is on the inside of you, it conquers certain things in your life. It conquers, you know, um, sin,
100%.
death, hell, and the grave, but it causes
100%.
you to rise in power. There is a power that is on the inside of you. This is not just a self-help book, people. This
Yes.
is power from on high. There is a power at what's working on the inside of you. And when I was a kid, we had these little toys. I'm
Yeah.
old, y'all. So we had these toys. You know what they are? They were called Weeble Wobbles. And the commercial for the toy went, Weeble Wobbles, but they won't fall down. And what they were these little toys, and they were weighted at the bottom, and you could push
Yes.
them. You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about? No
Yes.
way. No
Yes. Yes.
way. Weeble
Yes.
wobbles, but they won't fall down. And you can knock that thing to the ground, but that little thing just pops
Yeah.
right back
I know.
up,
Mhm.
because it's anchored. There's a weight at the bottom. And that's my little mental illustration of
Yes.
the power of the cross. I can weeble and I can wobble, but I won't
I'm
fall
not
down.
falling
You
down.
can knock me down, but baby, I'm coming right back up. I may go in the corner and cry, but I'm coming out fighting. I may fall down, but I'm getting back up
Yeah.
every single time. It's not without a fight. You do have to work out your salvation with fear and with trembling and a whole lot of
Right. A whole lot of fight.
you do, and you do need, I would say, back to my best friend, there were moments where I felt like Rocky, like I had just been just pummeled to death, and just left bloody. And she would say this to me. She would say, Leila, there's a warrior. And I would say, I can't do it anymore. And she would say, Leila, there's a warrior inside of you that just won't die.
Wow.
And she's a wonderful friend. She's a wonderful friend, and she's a blessing.
Leila, I want to talk to you about your Phoenix Beauty brand. Tell us a little bit about it, how it got started, and where we can find it.
Okay. Well, I'll start at the end and work to the beginning.
Okay.
You can find me on all my socials out there on both Facebook and Instagram under Phoenix Beauty, or my first and last name, Leila Mizell. You can search either way. You should be able to find me. I have a public professional page for both, for Phoenix Beauty on both Instagram and Facebook. And then I have a personal entrepreneurial, because I'm an entrepreneur, I have another business as well. That's another story. But Phoenix Beauty. Actually, the name Phoenix Beauty came from a nickname that, again, my best friend, who that I used to I would sing with. I sing, and we would sing together in a worship band. And she would tell me, we would kind of hang out after ministry events, and she would say, "Leila, when you sing, you are like a phoenix. You just rise up out of nowhere. You just rise up out of the ashes." And
Mm,
so that was her nickname for me, was Phoenix. And then I just thought, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with beauty, because I know what the world wants to do with beauty. We all know. But I'd always had a talent and a skill in the makeup and makeup and fashion. And from as long as I can remember, I was kind of the go-to girl, like amongst my friends, for
mm,
special events and things like that. So I started really young and worked my way through, working with a lot of different organizations, a lot of great brands, and worked for a lot of different people. And then I just wanted to do something. I just wanted to kind of combine kind of my artistry and my ministry, and just really birth this beautiful thing called Phoenix Beauty, the power to rise and transform. And it's the Phoenix, I thought, was the perfect example, because it is me. It is my story.
mhm.
I have risen from the ashes, and God has made something incredibly beautiful out of my life that I would have never ever imagined. But as far as Phoenix Beauty, I focus a lot on doing coaching and teaching. I do a lot of inspirational, motivational things. I've done like a lot of women's workshops and seminars. I've partnered with major universities, and working with their graduates and helping them transition into the workplace. I've worked with some major medical facilities, helping women that have been through weight loss procedures and have lost like large amounts of weight, and helping them to love themselves and style themselves and embrace they just find in beauty in
Oh,
themselves sometimes for the first time, because they never really thought of themselves in that way.
yeah,
I've also worked with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and worked with breast cancer survivors, or women who are going through treatments, who have lost the things that they feel like identify them as a woman, and helping them to feel confident and beautiful again. And sometimes just women that have gone through maybe domestic scenarios in their life that have made them feel less than or unworthy. And sometimes just women too, that have been stay-at-home moms and want to get back into the workplace, and or just there's just a variety of scenarios. But there's a message in the makeup, and it's always to inspire, and it's always to help women just to embrace and to see themselves. I always say I paint for them a picture that they can't see for themselves, and to just help them find their own style. It's not going to necessarily look like mine or anybody else's. Help
yeah,
them just embrace their own beauty. It doesn't have to be, I like a lot of lashes and a lot of stuff, but that's not for everybody.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
It's not. And and so I teach. I have
Uh-huh.
some workshops, some master classes that I teach, that are like intro classes that are great for young women, or women just starting out, or women that want to perfect their skills. So if anyone's interested in any of those workshops, or like a guest speaker, you can always reach out to me through one of my social media platforms.
I love it. So when you do your classes, Leila, do you come in? Do people bring their own makeup? Are you how does the classes work?
If it's a class that I'm conducting, that I'm hosting for Phoenix Beauty, and I'm teaching, like I'm educating, you enroll in the class, and then you can, because usually there's like a series. There'll be a lesson one, and I make them short on purpose. They're only an hour long, because you can go in and you can get all this info, and you can be taught a lot of things or hear a lot of things and not really retain it, know how to apply it, really use it. So they're meant to be short. You can bring in your own things that before the class. Everyone that enrolls in the class, I send them like a list of what I'm using and what we're going to be doing. They can either purchase some products through me, the exact products that I'm going to be using, or they're welcome to bring their own. So as far as the makeup instruction goes, those are the workshops that I teach. And then I've just done a variety of events. I've done fashion shows, I've done things for single moms. I did a whole outreach with single moms, and we did a fashion show. We used the single moms as the models, and so I've done like ladies brunches and women's events and things like that. And we did the same thing with Susan G. Coleman. It was during the month of October, we had a ladies brunch, and I was asked to come in and speak and share, which I did. And then I took a handful of ladies and we did like model makeovers. And I partnered, because I have a background in retail as well, and I partnered with some of the great retailers that were always willing to partner with me, and we would style them and we would do a little fashion show at the end. I did an event with LSU for the engineering department for 5 years in a row called WISE, and Women Inspiring Style and Engineering, and it was a wonderful event they had every year for
Yeah.
the graduates, and it was a networking event for them to come in, and for some of the corporate sponsors that would come in, like sometimes it would be Shell, Halliburton, Exxon that would sponsor. We'd bring in a keynote speaker, and they would have an opportunity to mix and mingle for that first hour, and network for job placement. And then we'd have a speaker, and then we would close, and I would do the fashion show. And I had local retailers that would partner with me, and for the clothing, but I would coordinate it all and put on the fashion show. And then we would use the young women that were graduating as the models.
As the
And
models.
so it was always a great event. So yeah, so it can be utilized in a variety of ways.
So if we wanted to partner with you on something like that, and especially any ladies who are listening, I know there are a lot of ladies who are entrepreneurs who have their own business, their own nonprofit or corporation. Now, would they be able just to reach out to you on Instagram or on your Facebook or on your website, right?
Yeah, I always feel like that's the easiest way for people to find me, is through my socials, and then also I do one-on-ones. So you can do one-on-ones now in the world of Zoom.
Yes.
We
Yes.
can do great things through one-on-ones if you're not local here in Houston,
Mhm.
and or if you're interested in an event or anything of that sort, you can just reach out to me for bookings. Yeah. And I do special event makeup and things like that as well. So
I love it. Well, I
yeah.
want to thank you so much, Leila, for sharing your story with
Oh,
us.
thank you so much. Thank you for
And
having me. It was a pleasure.
thank you. You really, for me, what I took today, for all of our ladies who are listening, I now know that I can take my ashes and I can give them to Christ, lay them down, lay my whole self down and turn it into beauty, because he doesn't want us to be perfect. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that story with us. And I would really, really, really encourage you to get that book written, because I think a lot of us need to see, need to see it, need to take a step back, read it, look at it, and, really know that we are all in this together. Leila, I will leave all your information in the description below. I want to thank everyone tuning in to another episode of Woman Witness Podcast with Stories at the Well. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Until next time, perhaps you were chosen for such a time as this to write and to tell your story, your truth. Bye.